Nice four-game slate this evening. I am certainly a little bit disappointed that we didn't get the early game on the slate. There was a nice 6 p.m. contest between the Pelicans and the Spurs with all kinds of dudes out. You had Uber Mode Drew Holiday, who should be doing some very real damage in the absence of any of his more high-usage compatriots. You had DeRozan taking a much-needed break for the Spurs. So there's all sorts of interesting value and other things that we could have found there. But that game, of course, already underway. 4 games left this evening. I am trying to find this that I may retweet the link. Aha! This should be me. Yep, that's my face. I am an unfortunate man. Okay, tweeting the link. I believe our erstwhile Josh Engelman is off today. Just got to do a little of the maintenance myself. All right, let's get in here and talk about these here 4 games. Oh, we'll tweet that. We'll retweet that. We got some things. Would you project Redick as a primary scorer? Kind of worried about Harris and Barton as tough defenders for him. Well, Harris a notch above Barton as far as defenders go, although this year, again, both of them been in and out with injuries, so they are both a step down, just the eye test and in rankings looking at their defense. But, yeah, Redick is a master of moving without the ball. Simmons the most important person I want on the court with him for his ability to facilitate efficient shooting. There's ball handler, point guard to shooter is not that much like having sex, or that much unlike having sex. You have to find a good rhythm. It's really about hitting them right in the pocket in the sweet spot. And if you watch 2 guys who spend enough time next to each other, there really is a certain rapport there. And J.J. Redick does a tremendous job of making maximum usage out of minimal space. And Simmons has generally very quickly picked up how to utilize him great and really lay the ball right in the pocket, giving him... So with Simmons in there, I still pretty much like J.J. Redick quite a bit. If Simmons was out and other guys were in, sure, the usage was going to be there, but I have more concerns about the efficiency. But, no, I like J.J. Redick quite a bit. Now, the ceiling's a little capped there. You're not easily going to hit your 50-point J.J. Redick game. So in tournaments, kind of like other guys, even cheaper guys, a little bit more. But I like J.J. Redick as a better cash play than, say, Bojan Bogdanovic, who's been brought up for me a couple times at a similar price. But I like Redick just fine. But that obviously the big game to get to. So we'll go chronologically. Let's get it started. Indiana going to Memphis. This is a... not an ideal game environment. Obviously, by a significant measure, the lowest over-under on the day at 202 or something like that. Both teams scheduled to score in the area of 100 points or so, as opposed to all the other teams on the slate ranging somewhere between 110 all the way up to almost 120 for Denver and Portland. So I do want to mention that. My greatest concern in advising people tonight would be that they overreact and take too many pieces of this game that isn't a great game. I can see having a couple. And people are going to be inclined to make moves, obviously, without Oladipo there. And for the Grizzlies, we obviously have Garrett Temple is going to be out, and Omri Caspi isn't there. And so, and of course, Kyle Anderson is still out. But I would have concern that people overplay their hand in this spot and end up buying pieces of just a game itself that's going to be fairly shitty. And with all the value opening up, especially on Philadelphia, I'm going to like all of that value a little bit more just for raw projection, for upside, relative to taking most of the guys from this game. Sorry, trying to start up the YouTube chat machine there. Open in browser. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. So, yeah, the first thing I want to mention is some concern that people are like, oh my god, Depot's out. I got to play, Thad and Miles Turner and Bojan and Tyreek and Darren Collison. And, like, I've literally had, today, I've spent probably an hour talking with people about this slate, and I've literally had them tell me they're like 7 people on the Pacers. all the starters, and Sabonis, and Corey Joseph. Okay, that's in a neutral matchup, maybe. I guess they all get some sort of cookie. Again, Oladipo is a high enough usage guy that usage and those minutes flowing to other guys does make them better. But yeah, against Memphis in Memphis, I really would not want to overexpose myself to this game. I guess it makes a fun game sort of stack if you take some of the cheap guys. But so I guess that would be my first caution. And then beyond that, a lot of guys being site dependent. Let's talk about the Grizzlies first because they're a little bit easier. 4-game slate, you can still certainly play Justin Holiday. Obviously, the price has come up. No longer getting $3,700 Justin Holiday playing all the minutes he can handle. Minutes were limited last game, but I really doubt that's the case here now. When you take there's no Omri Caspi still, and you take Garrett Temple out of the rotation, I think you're getting 35 plus minutes of Justin Holiday, and regardless of a shitty game environment, there's still a ceiling to be had there. So he's fine in tournaments, but point per dollar, someone I wouldn't be super over in love with. They've announced that Javon Carter will get the start. He and Shelvin Mack will be the largest minutes beneficiaries of those two guys. I would probably slightly prefer Shelvin Mack, all things being equal in a tournament, just because of coming off the bench, which we actually prefer in this situation, and having a pretty similar minutes allocation I expect between those two men. And cheap enough that, and you should get him well lower owned than probably Carter himself, because he's starting, which does make his minutes more secure. As opposed to the beginning of this year, which was really a sequence of about 30 games where it was like, why the hell are they playing Shelvin Mack so much? They're not playing this Brooks or that Brooks, or all these other, younger development players. They were playing Shelvin Mack, who is a known quantity, really running out the string on him more than made sense. Boogie will remain limited to about 24 minutes. Okay, I thought he would pick up a couple minutes. That makes me, again, less excited. It's hard for me to get to Boogie on any site. I think if you're building on Yahoo, where, again, there's some really nice bargain plays we can talk about in a bit, he makes some sense at $20, but there's so much good value that you end up paying up, and a lot of the guys you want to pay up for is you really want to play in basically what ends up being your two center spots there. Some combination of Miles Turner or Nikola Jokic or Yusuf Nurkic. Anyhow, I like Conley more than Marc Gasol if in some world you are choosing between the two, especially Conley. The prices on Yahoo is pretty good. On DraftKings is still excellent. Not a bad matchup for him. Actually, pretty extensive game log and lots of video on him and Collison. And it's not a spot I'm worried about particularly. Don't mind him. Don't mind Collison across the ball. We'll get there. Jaren Jackson's $4,800 on DK. He's probably my favorite play on this team just because there is just a monster ceiling there. And we do project him to get a few extra minutes here. We've seen more time with like JaMychal Green up at the 3, not having Caspi there, who sometimes played down at the 4. There's just some extra minutes for all the men in the front court here as well. So Jaren Jackson at $4,800 on DK is almost safe. Like, I almost don't mind him in cash. And that's a bizarre sentence to even think for Jaren Jackson, especially in a shitty matchup. But the shitty matchup is why his price has been so phenomenally reduced. So points per dollar, especially DraftKings, Jaren Jackson and Mike Conley make the most sense. It's a 4-game slate. You can certainly, Marc Gasol has put together a couple very decent games against Miles Turner, though if they were the same price, I would rather play Miles Turner. And site by site, many places I'd prefer Jokic and Nurkic, but Marc Gasol certainly in play. We saw his ridiculous, 25, 12, 17 game the other day. JaMychal Green himself just fine, especially FanDuel, 4,700, where that price is pretty appealing. I'd probably generally rather go a couple other places. Usually not giant upside guy, and again, this not an environment we're certainly excited about, but certainly in play on a 4-game slate, 4,700 feels best on FanDuel. Let's go ahead and talk about and if I miss anything, you can throw me a midstream question and I may stop for it. Otherwise, I will get to it around the end of the show and try to burn through everything we can. So again, the Pacers, you take Oladipo out of there. It is a cookie for everyone. Again, they're the big 7 guys we're looking at, or the 5 starters. I don't know if they've officially announced it, but I expect them to slide Tyreek in and have him start at the 2. The Tyreek decision is interesting. It's worth pointing out Tyreek is now the minimum again on Yahoo. That's pretty exciting. With him starting at $10 on Yahoo, you can slot him in. I think he's a shooting guard. I saw 5,100, 5,200 on the other two sites. I am more inclined to go other places. Again, my overall concern there. Triple J over Aminu in tournaments. Aminu in cash, I guess, probably makes more sense. But I do like the value of Triple J a little bit more. Well, it's obviously very close because Aminu gets Atlanta, which obviously feels a hell of a lot better. But yeah, I would be a little more inclined to play Triple J just because of the upside. So Tyreek, was amazing and prolific and aggressive for a number of years and was really, instant money off the bench, Lou Williams type guy. And then at the beginning of this year was just dreadful. And then Oladipo went out and everyone was like, all right, here we go. And then he was still pretty goddamn dreadful for Depot missing a whole lot of games. And then Depot came back and he randomly started getting a little better, getting a little more aggressive, the secondary stance would show you. And now Depot's out again. So obviously the upside is there. And again, I'm going to load up our ownership projections here so I can give some ideas, because it really does come down to an ownership question. If Tyreek is going to be 10% owned, all right, then I think he's a pretty good risk. I feel pretty good about running out 10% owned Tyreek. Even in a bad spot at 5K, someone's got to do the scoring for this team. It could very possibly be him. If he's going to be much above that, yeah, right now we have him at 16 on DraftKings for projection. Assuming that holds true, I'm generally disinclined towards it. I would generally look some other places. And again, my largest reason for that is just don't know exactly how it's going to shake out, although we have seen something pretty similar. Obviously with Depot missing a lot of games in the past, but just the game environment is really, really bad, and we should really take that into account with all these decisions. So minimum price Tyreek on Yahoo, sure. 51.52 on FanDuel DraftKings. Again, 4-game slate, feel free, but not the first place I'm looking. Certainly on DK, where it's only $400 more to get up for 5,600, I would rather play Darren Collison. All sorts of upside there. DK, you get the double-double bonus, which without Oladipo, real chance he pulls in double-digit assists, and you just get, for 5,600, he gets 38 fantasy points by getting, 15 points, 10 assists, a couple of rebounds, a steal or a block or something. So Collison, certainly I would prefer there. Bojan, again, usually not super upside guy. FanDuel, where he's proportionately priced more advantageously, I can see going there in small forward. I would probably rather pick someone not playing in the slow shit game. But, 150 lineups, I'd have some. But more of a cash game play, and there's just, I would rather run, Torian Prince. I would rather run probably either Bembry or Hoarder. There's probably just other places I would rather go. Not out of play, but not thrilled. Thad Young at $5,800 on DK. Don't mind at all. It does express a bit more of an upside with Depot out there. Don't mind him on Yahoo or FanDuel either, simply because he's an excellent steals guy. Maybe the best steals power forward in the game right now. I'd have to think about it. I guess if you count Anthony Davis, he'd get on that list. But really great steals guy. That really adds to his upside, where you can get 4 steals and 2 blocks and get some, yippee-skippy games out of Thad Young. On DK, I do slightly prefer Al Horford. There's a really nice Al Horford spot. I actually like Horford against Cousins, having done a fair bit of tape review on that today. So I like Thad. I would rather play Al Horford at basically the same price. And again, Miles Turner, where you're saving some pretty significant money off Marc Gasol. I do prefer Marc Gasol, but again, not the greatest game environment, so he would come in lower on the list for me than most places. Again, the prices are all over the place, especially when we're now looking really at 3 sites. Nurkic and Jokic, it's going to defend a little bit, but again, Turner certainly can play on a short slate. Sabonis just hasn't been getting enough time and hasn't been that great with it. Now, when Turner and Depot were out, he's an absolute monster, obviously. And I don't mind him in tournaments, but just the price is not reduced enough yet where, there is the ceiling there where he's, 25 on Yahoo and somewhere between 6,500 and 7,000 on FanDuel and DraftKings. Yeah, he can get there, but it's pretty unlikely at this point. Like, you need something to happen to Miles Turner. And Marc Gasol does many things, but doesn't tend to rack up that many fouls on Miles Turner, at least specifically. So, generally disinclined towards Sabonis. It's not getting too cute because he could get you 50. It wouldn't be shocking if it happened, but would be down my list of tournament plays, certainly. And the last guy people are talking about is Kojo. I got 4,900 on FanDuel, would be pretty far down my list of point guards at that point. 4,100 on DK, I think, makes a pretty interesting pivot off a lot of more popular value in the Corey Brewer area, TJ McConnell area. He's going to be more owned. So I can sort of see going to Corey Joseph there. I can sort of see playing him on Yahoo, but again, Yahoo just gives you all sorts of really powerful plays like TJ McConnell, who's 11 there, and again, the aforementioned Tyreek Evans, who is all of $10, so probably doesn't crack first lineup there either. That seems like enough for this pile of shit game. Let's go ahead and move on to Golden State visiting Boston. Great basketball game. Really excited to watch this game. So, unsurprisingly, as we expected, when you take Kevon Looney out of the starting lineup, who is a perfectly effective NBA player, and put in DeMarcus Cousins, who is a beast, monster guy who sucks up a lot of usage and shots and other things of that nature, everyone else gets a little bit crappier. Yeah, someone just said Javon Carter question. I don't mind him on FanDuel, where he's, minimum price and punty. I have him right now for 27 minutes. Again, the environment is shit. It is hard to like him more than some of the cheaper guys on there, but I don't mind if you play him over, say, Landry Shamet or something like that. But, starting not a benefit for him, and I would rather play Shelvin Mack, and I would probably rather play Landry Shamet than him. Would certainly rather play Jonah Bolden, who most places will be my favorite piece of the value in that game. Jamal Murray, game time decision. Yeah, I really like, especially FanDuel, Monty Morris. Monty Morris's minimum price shooting guard on FanDuel, where shooting guard is also a little bit sticky. So I really like Monty Morris tonight. It's one of my favorite plays. Like my shooting guards, I think would be. I think my favorite shooting guard combo for tournaments on FanDuel right now is Monty Morris and CJ McCollum, and hope both of those break your way. And you're not dead in the water if either one doesn't break your way. You can certainly have, Monty Morris get his standard backup of Jamal Murray, whatever, let's say 16 or 17 minutes, and fall into a decent game that way. And obviously you can drop him there, and it's not like McCollum versus the Hawks is dead weight if Lillard plays. So like having those guys as my shooting guards. Can't imagine that'll be that unique, but pretty excited to play both those guys in that spot. So yeah, Cousins sucking up a pile of usage, sort of limiting everything. He's going to play 24 minutes again. I don't mind him. It is not a good environment for basically anyone on this team. Al Horford does a pretty admirable job covering DeMarcus Cousins. I went back and watched a good hour of it today, which just reminds me how much fun it is for me to watch both those guys for entirely different reasons, by the way. Al Horford is just really good at basketball. He's really solid. He's the kind of basketball player your dad wished you were. And DeMarcus Cousins is the kind of basketball player you wish you were, where force of nature, same time making threes, dribbling around his back, and then just punking people down low. Two guys I really like watching for entirely disparate reasons. But on DK, I really like Al Horford. His minutes limit is seemingly entirely abrogated, and I expect him to get like 32 minutes in this spot. And he's been very productive both ends of the court against Cousins, and I expect the ownership to be nominal, to say the least. That's all kinds of SAT words in one sentence. But let us look at what is pretty high. We have him as our sixth highest projected player on DraftKings. So apparently I was not unique in this analysis. So I think a lot of people just went 5,700. But so I do like Horford. I do like playing him at that price. I would rather pay that price than say Marcus Morris, who has a much tougher matchup, who is also cheap and fine in tournaments, 4-game slate. Same thing. I mean, all these guys got priced down pretty significantly on DK. Any of the Celtics on FanDuel are troublesome. They're not out of play. You want to play Horford as a center at 6,600, obviously, and play in tournaments. FanDuel, the centers are all too expensive if you're not punting with Muscala, which will be a pretty popular move. Yeah. So certainly Horford, probably my favorite Celtic on FanDuel. Kyrie gets up for the Warriors, gets up for Steph. Obviously, we have a pretty massive sample of tape here with multiple finals, and I like Kyrie. I like Kyrie more than Steph. I don't think Steph is certainly out of play, but Kyrie has shown us several monster. Your microphone is phenomenal tonight. Yeah, people told me last time, someone mentioned during the last show, that when I muted the show, it went shitty. Which doesn't make any sense, so instead I've left the show at a volume of like 2. I don't know why one had shit to do with the other, but apparently that fixes it. So thank you all for your continued feedback, even those of you who were really giant dicks about it. Wasn't doing it on purpose. Any love for Iggy? Iggy's fine as a punt. Has been more productive than we expect recently. Has really, solidified his role there, where earlier in the year there was a lot more experimentation with, let's see what happens if we put Jarebko in here, and let's move around Livingston's rotation a little bit and play some Jordan Bell tonight. And, Iggy's role has been much more solid. He's looked good, and he's, more of a cash punt for me. But 4-game slate, yeah, I like him a lot. I like him more. FanDuel, I think he's $400 or $500 more. That makes it tougher. But he's, 11 on Yahoo. That's probably where he's best. Again, you want the steal block upside, so you want 3 points for a steal, 3 points for a block if you're playing Iggy. But certainly not out of play. Do I like John Collins on DK tonight? I think he's fine. Again, you're jumping me 2 games ahead, but I'll answer your question anyway. John Collins is obviously significantly expensive, and I'd rather save with Horford. I would rather save with Jaren Jackson Jr. That being said, he's still priced fairly well, even in what's a reasonably difficult matchup for him, and just not surprised to see him get 20 and 10 at any point. So he's a perfectly fine sort of more cashy gameplay where I think he gives you 37 to 43, and that's just fine. In tournaments, I would try to rather get up to playing Durant or down to Draymond or again Jaren Jackson Jr. or Horford. So I'm fairly ambivalent about John Collins. He's literally right in that medium range where I see him and I feel nothing. It's a stake of dullness to the center of my heart. So anything else we want to talk about here? So yeah, as far as the Warriors go a little bit more, DeMarcus Cousins at a bit over 6K. If he's still going to play about 24 minutes, I would probably project him for about 35 fantasy points, which is perfectly meh. Could he go the hell off and get you 50 fantasy points in 24 minutes against Horford and the Celtics? Yeah, but I don't think it's very likely. And that's sort of why you're, in a tournament, you're trying to buy into upside. Even getting more than 40 out of him seems unlikely. I would rather play Draymond in what's expected to be a close game, and I can hope to get, 34 minutes out of him, and he's much more likely to give me 50 for basically the exact same amount of money. But yeah, the presence of Cousins, understandably, brings everyone down a peg, and then playing on the road in Boston brings everyone down another peg. So there's a reason that the prices, especially on DK, are extra cheap for Curry and Durant and Clay and Draymond. I probably, again, have Draymond as my favorite. He will disappoint you about 60% of the time, be irrelevant 30% of the time, but 10% of the time will do some ridiculous 5x5 bullshit that isn't markedly less likely in these negative environments. So, when you're running into a slower matchup where the scoring is reduced, I often fall back on Draymond, and again, at his price, I'd probably have him as my favorite tonight. I don't have a problem if you go with Clay on DK, just because 5,900 is objectively a little too cheap for a guy who, in any matchup, carries a really significant upside. Again, we saw, Devin Booker drop 70 on the Celtics, so it's not impossible that he gets his shots going, and if you're going with a scoring guy, you're saving $3,200 to $3,300 versus Steph and Durant. I would prefer Steph to Durant, all else being equal. So if somehow that is a choice, you have to make heads up. So I probably, prefer them Draymond, Clay, Steph, Durant out of the 4 of them. Simmons or Irving? Yeah, raw projection, I still have to go with Ben Simmons. I really expect him to get pretty close to a triple-double tonight. He's going to have every opportunity to do everything he wants to. I actually really like the matchup for him quite a bit. And I have his minutes up a touch over 40, I think. So, I'll have to go with Ben Simmons still. That being said, I think Kyrie makes the most obvious and immediately beneficial pivot. There is a giant... He has had some monster games against the Warriors and some monster games against... Steph, and some monster games recently, so that's me using the word monster a lot, which is usually a good sign for someone's projection. What about on FanDuel, where a lot of our value is at point guard? I'll go read the rest of that question. Lock in floor with KD at a weak small forward position. Yeah, that is actually what I have right now. There's really not difficult to play, you know, Simmons, Jokic, Durant, and that's actually what I have right now because I think it's you're most inclined to play Simmons and a value guy, and playing Steph or Kyrie. You can obviously play the two of them there, and there's plenty of value across the forwards. Just, you know, ripping guys out of Philadelphia can fill out those spots. Yes, that's on FanDuel. I probably would be the only site where I would be more inclined to end up with Kevin Durant for that reason. So, Ruby Rod. Someone's named Ruby Rod. Ruby Rod. He's so sexy. He's so talented. Don't you agree? Anything else to talk about here? Nope. Basically, the starting five guys. Iguodala and Looney. Looney's still at $4,000 on DK. Still makes plenty of sense in tournament. Probably gets, you know, probably gets 23, 24 minutes off the bench. Don't hate him. He would be in play. But yeah, the five starters and those two guys. Yeah, let's move on. Alright, so the 76ers, or at least 40% of the 76ers visiting the Nuggets. Again, we will be without Joel Embiid. We will be without Wilson Chandler. We will be without Jimmy Butler. I imagine they start Simmons, Redick, Brewer, Bolden, and Muscala. Jonah Bolden is my favorite of the value plays on this team. He's the best fantasy player. He has nominally the best matchup starting at the 4 of the starters as far as defensive matchup. I like his ability against Millsap. But just a guy with steal, blocks, all kind of upside. Again, the price is a little different site by site, but $3,800 on FanDuel, the guy I'm looking to the most there. So Bolden, my favorite guy out of the value there. Brewer's going to start. Again, we've seen generally a little better Corey Brewer than I think we're going to see most games going forward. Getting a lot of points off of peripherals there. He's got, in these two games, he had 2 steals and 2 blocks in the first one and 2 steals in the second one. So, you know, if you're looking at FanDuel scoring, that literally ended up being, you know, 50% of his scoring in the first game and 40% in the second one. Now, it's fine. That's something he can do. But even those games did not bust any blocks, so to speak. So, you know, there's a real chance sort of a stinker there, and I think he ends up being pretty highly owned. Let's go see where we find... So let's go see what the ownership is listed in order of guys on Philadelphia here. I am curious. Obviously, we have Ben Simmons on top. No surprise there. Second, we currently have Redick. Third, we have Bolden. Look at how smart you people are. I love it. Fourth, we do have Brewer, and I would have Brewer personally in tournaments lower than several other guys. So let me refresh this just in case. Will Barton or Prince on Yahoo? I will take Will Barton. And remember, Yahoo has late swap because non-zero chance they rest him. It's a back-to-back. Wouldn't shock me to see one of these guys rested. You may have missed it. Did I touch on Justin Holiday, FanDuel GPB? Pierre Tiveth mentions on the Twitter sphere. Yeah, I mentioned him. He's fine. He should get back over 35 minutes, I said. Again, the matchup is shit. But $4,800 on FanDuel, where he's been accruing lots of steals, and that obviously can get to that value there. 4-game slate, he's fine. But I would generally rather play most of the guys on this Philly team. So I would rather play Brewer than Justin Holiday, for example, because of the price savings. If they were the same price, I would go to Holiday, because, again, he will take some shots and he'll play 35 minutes. As alluded to earlier, and I can't remember if this was personal conversation or on the show, but JJ Redick is just fine. It was on the show. Monty Morris on DK at all. Yeah, it's again, same theory. You're just and you have late swap there as well. So by all means, monitor the news. And Monty Morris, slam dunk, amazing play in the event that Jamal Murray is out. Some sites had Torrey Craig posted as the starter. I expect Will Barton to start at the 3 for what it is worth there. So yeah, Simmons I have projected for over 40 minutes and about 55 fantasy points. Big fan of Ben Simmons. I'll just leave it there since we're running out of time, or at least running through time. I like Redick. Again, a bit more of a cash play, but you know, usage is going to come up from his standard 20 to closer to 26 or 27 here. There is a real upside. and there's reasonably safe floors. So all the numbers on Reddick, where he's 61 on FanDuel, 56 on DK, and I want to say 19 on Yahoo, those all make plenty of sense. Not a must-play, but priced very well. Brewer's fine, but again, being the second most popular piece of value over Bolden, I would probably rather TJ McConnell at the same price. You end up with TJ McConnell playing point guard and Ben Simmons basically playing power forward a lot of the time. And with all three of those guys out, he is just their guy on that team. He's their Joe Harris, which is like, oh, there's an opening. We're going to give as many minutes to TJ McConnell as possible. Like, he just ends up picking all the minutes up when shit goes a little sideways. So I have him for 29 right now. I like TJ McConnell quite a bit as a piece of value. My second favorite after Corey Brewer. Not after Corey Brewer, after Jonah Bolden, and above Corey Brewer. Moose is fine. Obviously makes a ton of sense on FanDuel, where he is the bare-ass minimum. On DK, I would rather play McConnell for a couple $100 less. I would rather play Bolden for $100 less. That being said, he still projects as an excellent play at 4,200. But I do have some concern about foul trouble. Thoughts about Gordon Hayward as a punt on FanDuel? Yeah, I mean, I want to play Will Barton in that spot. But if you don't have I think there's like a $300 difference. That's fine. My scalp is itchy. It may be because I poured Mountain Dew on it and haven't had a shower since then. Inquiring minds want to know. I do think Furkan Korkmaz plays in this game, but he is, been shown to be consistently a peg behind Landry Shamet at this point, and again, TJ McConnell for what it's worth. But there are going to be so many, and of course Corey Brewer. So I currently have Furkan Korkmaz for 17 minutes. That being said, there was the couple Uber games this year and an amazing game out of him in Summer League, and guy can shoot. So if I had 150 lineups, I'd have 5 Furkan Korkmaz or 10, but he's behind Shamet and McConnell and Muscala and Bolden and Brewer. So yeah, in general, setting aside positions and ignoring sites, I rank the value as far as how much I want to play them in tournaments, so counting ownership, not just a raw projection, otherwise you get Muscala higher. I probably have it Bolden over McConnell over Muscala over Brewer over Shamet over Korkmaz. So there are your 6 value guys on the 76ers, which seems kind of ridiculous. I would probably have Monty Morris third on that list, just because you are not dead, especially on FanDuel, where again, shooting guard and bare-ass minimum, and really gigantic upside in the event that Jamal Murray sits down. Where does Seth Curry fit in relative to those guys? It depends if Lillard is playing. I don't think we've gotten that news. Nope, still on Jamal Murray, a game time decision. So yeah, across the ball, Gary Harris at like 4,300 is too cheap. Now I do have some concern that you get guys sitting out. Now if Jamal Murray sits out, I seriously doubt they said either Harris or Barton, but Barton's still too cheap on Yahoo, too cheap on FanDuel. The DraftKings price at 6,500 is about appropriate. I don't know how much time we're going to get here. Mike Malone has been a gigantic doucher when it comes to these guys' minutes, and there was 2 games ago where he said they're still minutes limited and they won't start until they get rid of their minutes limits, and then Harris started and Barton didn't, and he said they'd both play 20 and Harris played like 25 and Barton played like 30. So I don't know. And then last game they said they were limited again, but they both played plenty, and I don't know what the limit is, and again. Regardless, they're both priced way the hell too cheap on FanDuel. Harris at 43, I like a lot. I like him less than Barton at 52, and unfortunately he's also a small forward, but again, if I'm building 150 lineups on FanDuel today, I probably have like 60 Barton and 35, 40 Harris, some number like that. I like both those guys quite a bit at their prices. But beware of a possible sit if Jamal Murray plays, just because they're on a back-to-back and these guys are recovering after being out for a while. I don't expect that, but I don't think it's impossible. Prince versus JaMychal versus Barton, all $16 on Yahoo. Yeah, I'm going to take Barton pretty significantly there. I'll go Barton. Probably for the ownership, I will go JaMychal over Prince. I think you will have Prince a little higher on there. I have those guys projected pretty close to identical. Atlanta in a bit of a scary spot, obviously. Long road travel, always a rotation with some interesting pieces in it. quarterback healthy, there's a real chance, Lynn there, obviously Trae Young starting, there's a real chance that the minutes on the wings there get chopped up in a not particularly ideal way. So, and just when you're comparing them to roughly the guys on Philadelphia, I have them projected pretty similarly, except for, I have Horder a few points ahead of all those other guys. But all the guys on Philly are 4K, and all the guys on Atlanta are 5K. And so just raw points, I'm going to fall to those Philly guys more often than not. There's no reason Jokic shouldn't score a gabillion today. I have him projected actually about a half point less than Ben Simmons. Seeing dueling triple-doubles between those two guys wouldn't surprise me at all. There's even more of an upside in the event Jamal Murray is out. There's more of an upside the more limited Harris and Barton are. But Jokic, absolutely fine spend up on today's slate. Probably worth the 11K you're throwing at him, or the 40, whatever I think he ended up on Yahoo. No issues with that. 4-game slate, I don't mind if you Mason Plumlee. There is always an upside there, and shit can go, sideways. So if you randomly get 24 minutes based on a blowout or something, that can happen for you. And again, Monty Morris, I like quite a bit. Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings in play, but again, if just be ready to probably late swap off it to whatever, McConnell, Shamet, someone else in the event that Jamal Murray plays. I would have all those other guys ranked higher. If Jamal Murray sits, then yeah, I would want to get Monty Morris in there at reduced ownership over those guys. Paul Millsap still just fine. Obviously, the minutes have not been all that we hoped they would be recently, but that makes us feel a little more confident shit isn't going to go too squirrely on a back-to-back. And again, if you look at the game last night versus Phoenix, played, 22 minutes and had 40 fantasy points. So the upside's still certainly there, though, again, tougher matchup and Jokic back. And I like him, but don't not over the moon with him. Would rather have Barton projected for more as an immediate comparison. Millsap versus Triple J on FanDuel. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think I'm slightly more inclined most times to end up playing Triple J, just because I feel like I would have Barton in a lot of those lineups. If I didn't have Barton, that's probably enough for me to move on to Millsap, because obviously all these guys can't get there, especially if I'm working from the starting point of Jokic being a monster. Well, you're probably not going to get great games out of Jokic and Millsap and Barton. It's possible. So it's certainly not an impossibility, but... So that would probably be how I make the determination. If I have Barton in there, I'd go the other way. If I didn't, I would probably slot to Millsap at that point. That seems like enough of that game for the moment. Basically talked about every player. Let's go ahead and look at the last game of the evening, all the way down at 10 o'clock. Atlanta going into a slightly more plucky Atlanta team recently, putting up a decent contest against Toronto and a couple other teams where they kept it in there. That's what she said. So, yeah, the news that Lillard is going to be resting, and then he's not resting, but he's questionable with a knee injury, and I'm not sure exactly what sorcery this is going on with that team. The Grizzlies are starting who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were. Conley, Javon Carter again starting at the 2. Justin Holiday. All 3 Holidays in action tonight. Only a 4-game slate, but triple Holiday action. Somebody build that, by the way, on DraftKings. I think you can build it on FanDuel too. Yeah, there are enough different positions. Somebody run that out there in a tournament. Make some tournament money with that. The triple Holiday lineup. You heard it here first. Triple J and triple Holiday. Like, there's a theme here, I'm telling you. Triple H, the Royal Rumble is tomorrow. See what I'm doing here? I got nothing. And Marcus All starting at center. So, yeah. It does not seem, insane to me that if this team is going to give Lillard a rest, someone who is famously against resting, by the way, he just gets out there every chance he gets in, fights to play, and doesn't like to rest. But certainly against the Hawks would seem like a good spot to do it. They are not on a back-to-back. The Nuggets and the Grizzlies played last night. Obviously, we alluded to that. And the only team on the front end is the Spurs, who played on the early slate there. Will the Holiday brothers or the Curry brothers score more points? That's a great question. The Curry brothers are better, but the Holidays have 3 of them. I don't know. Hold on. Let me check. Let me clear my throat. I bet Drew is being a monster. I'm just guessing. Let's go look. Dear Jesus. Not that great. 23-5-2 and a block so far for Drew with a couple minutes left in the third quarter, but he was gonna have to try pretty hard to fail with, I don't know, all the good players on the team out. No Randall, no Brown, no whatever. I wonder who's got the surprise game. By the way, Jaleel Okafor, apparently for real. 19, 10, an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks thus far. Picking up some slack he is. Got him off the waiver wire in my season-long fantasy league. For some of us, that's as close to the action as we get. Curry's easy, they're saying. Raw points, I would have the Curry's projected for somewhere in the high 30s or low 40s. The holidays, we're already looking like we're going to spot like 28 for Drew. I'll throw a number out there. He's got 23 right now, called 30 for Drew. So I need like 13 points out of Justin and Aaron. That's pretty close to the right line. That's actually a really... you guys should do some side betting on that. More raw points, Curry's, or holidays right now. I would have it really, really goddamn close. Gasol going to eat tonight. I would be surprised if he does. Now, in fairness, the last time I said that, he ate. The big burrito went out there and had himself a gigantic game. He was questionable. The matchup wasn't that great, and he went out and had, whatever, 25, 12, and 17, whatever that redonkulous line he put up was. So maybe it happens again, but the pace isn't there. The matchup isn't great. Indiana's been great against centers. Career long, Marc Gasol has a negative grade for me against Miles Turner. So obviously it can happen, but certainly no reason to expect that to be the spot. So anyhow, the Portland hosting them there. I like McCollum a lot, obviously. You swap into him on sites where you can swap in the event that Lillard decides not to lace him up tonight. Makes plenty of sense on FanDuel. It's already a very decent price at $6,800 against the Hawks anyway. And again, he's been unexciting this year just because he does so much less distributing. That would change now. But as opposed to in previous years, basically Lillard and then Turner do all the distributing, and McCollum just becomes an off-guard shooter. That really limits, his assists per game go from, 8 to 3. Is 4 Sixers too many on DK? You have Simmons, Brewer, McConnell, and Bolden all in my line. Short answer, no. that's fine. I mean, 3 of them cost $4,000. It's one more than I would like. Like, Simmons is fine. We'll set Simmons aside. 3 value guys could certainly get there, but you're going into Denver, which is an above-average defense, sometimes a superlative defense. Wanting 3 guys in a tournament on DK, like FanDuel, I'm fine with it, because you're going to dump one of them. So if you have 3 4K Philadelphia guys in your FanDuel lineup, that's great. You want them to get 35, 35, and 6. You're fine with that. That's a great outcome. On DK, if they get 35, 35, and 6, well, now you're not winning anything. I mean, you may cash some things. You may win your 50-50, but you take my point there. Thoughts on Jake Layman? He's not this good. He's not that good. I think he's fine to play in tournaments, although I've been asked about him more times than I'm comfortable being asked about Jake Layman. But he's in the garbage time squad here. If you say I'm not going to play McCollum, I'm not going to play Lillard, I'm not going to play John Collins and go with, team trash, he's got a fine starting spot on team trash there. I would probably rather go somewhere less owned. I would probably rather Zach Collins. I'd probably rather Seth Curry, who would run that blowout squad. But again, on a 4-game slate, if you want, go ahead and play yourself some Jake Layman, who is I will give him credit for being a vastly improved shooter this year. If you look at him year by year, it's been amazing. But I don't think you continue to get 35 minutes out of him or any of that. That is, I think, an aberration. I have him down for 21 minutes right now. We can look at that later. Fantasy draft: Cousins and McConnell or Horford and ET. I'll take Cousins and McConnell there. I like Horford, and I don't mind Evan Turner, but if you give a couple extra minutes to Jake Layman, and if this game does potentially blow out, like there's a lot of ways Evan Turner ends up playing 16 minutes. I will get to all your questions in a second because we're basically almost done here. Nurkic in a monster spot, obviously no longer cheap, but I have him projected for a little north of 45. He just looks amazing this year. And again, if Lillard is out, they slow down. They end up in the half court a little bit more. the spot is a goddamn monster. So don't be afraid to pay the price on Nurkic in anything. Aminu at 4,500 is a very good play. I have no issue if you play Aminu over Triple J. I go back and forth on that one. That's really close for me. I wonder where we have the ownership, which again should be the deciding factor in such things. I bet we have Aminu higher. We have Aminu much higher. We have Aminu as the third high. I will refresh. The third highest owned player on DK. We have Aminu at 36% owned. We have Jaren Jackson Jr. at 26%. So I will go with the latter of those two guys. Chalkiest player right now, DeMarcus Cousins at 43%. I think that's asinine. Like, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think, like, I guess he's 6,200. There's a big upside there. But, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I haven't projected 1 point more than Al Horford, as an example, who, in fairness, we have at 34% and the fourth highest guy. But at 43%, Daddy does not like that. I would want to be under the field on that number for DeMarcus Cousins. Yeah, so the rest of the take on the Hawks here, again, they're priced a little better on DK than most other sites. Hoarder at 5,100. Again, he basically just had a strained neck, I think. I expect him to get back in there and be playing like his 35 minutes again. That has me appropriately more concerned about Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince, the one guy who's priced much better on FanDuel. Don't mind him in a tournament at 4,700. Again, like most of the other guys I've talked about a little bit more. And again, this is not a great spot for the Hawks. With all hands on deck and healthy there, there's just a lot of ways the minutes sort of fail here. So, you know, Bembry, $1,100 cheaper or whatever on DK. That's fine. You want to run $4,700 Bembry? I think he plays 26 minutes. Maybe you can get there. Again, I prefer most of the Philly guys. If you're building one lineup, if you're building a lot of lineups, absolutely I'd want to have some exposure here. Hoarder we discussed again. I think he gets, you know, back over like 35 minutes here. John Collins is fine sort of as a money sink, but I don't look at him as a great point per dollar play. Dedmon, especially on DK, where he's $5,100, always like his upside. And there's a spot where he can get open and actually bang out some threes. That's something this defense with playing more Nurkic can end up being a little more susceptible to. Jeremy Lin is fine in tournaments at 4,200, 4-game slate. Trae Young, fine. Like, I would rather play Mike Conley, though it's like $700 more. But he'd be on my list. He's someone you would want exposure to. But again, when this team is all healthy, and this team is basically all healthy now, everybody's minutes are threatened. You can get a lot of scenarios where your minutes break down as 35 for Herter, 29 for Trae Young, 26 for DeAndre Bembry, 32 for John Collins, 28 for Dwayne Dedmon, 24 for Alex Len, 22 for Jeremy Lin, 23 for Taurean Prince. Like, it can just turn into a damn mess before we even get into the Justin Anderson, Amari Spellmans of the world. So, more inclined towards, you know, other teams than the Hawks road tripping 3,000 miles into Portland late at night. But yeah, again, 4 games, I would have, you know, some Hawks, as I think you would have to. So let me do a quick news alerty check, make sure I'm not missing anything. Check for, no, that's all set. Those are updated. And I will just bang out questions for the remainder of the time until we get some news. I see this one now. So Horford, Triple J, and Barton, or Nurk, Bolden, and man, my notifications when they pop up on my desktop stay just not long enough to be useful. Close, but not long enough. Give me a sec to get everything all set up so I don't have to stop for the rest of the show. It's a really big shoe. No, that's all right. All right, let's bang out some questions real quick. All right, Premium Slack, you always get to go first. In Japan, men come first. All right, Horford, Triple J, and Barton, or Nurk, Bolden, and Harris on a FanDuel GPP. I like both of those quite a bit. I will go with Nurk, Bolden, and Harris, but I like both those quite a bit. Someone pussied out on Curry's versus Holidays. That's a great bet. We should someone get Thrive Fantasy, our sponsor, on the line there. Sorry for the length, too much value. DK Cash. Wow. Bolden, Brewer, Carter, Nurk, or Aminu, Cousins, ET, and Triple J. All right, there we go. Well, you're getting your money's worth. I would play Bolden, Brewer, Carter, and Nurkic in cash. Durant or Simmons on a DK GPP. I'm just going to play Simmons. He is going to be vastly higher on, like triple the ownership. I have him projected for like 9 more fantasy points. So feel free to play Durant. You will get an ownership bonus. Not like Durant can't drop 60 here or Simmons can't fail, but just understand what you're doing when you do that. Sabonis or Turner, FanDuel GPP. Turner for me, not terribly close at this point. Do we like Shamet and Horford over TJ and Reek, right? Yes, I like Shamet and Horford over TJ and Reek. More raw points, Muscala or Bolden? I have Muscala for 1.5 more raw points. And there is some conjecture on my part here with how many minutes we get out of Jonah Bolden. I think we get Jonah Bolden minutes in the mid to high 20s. I can't guarantee that, and he's come in fewer minutes than I've expected in the past as well. He's played really well. He's obviously jumped past Amir Johnson in the rotation. I expect Amir basically just to be the backup center / fill in for foul trouble center for Mike Muscala tonight, and I like Bolden to get himself a pile of time at the 4, but I can't guarantee it and that they don't end up running small some more. So I have Muscala projected for about a fantasy point and a half more now. Fantasy draft, Cousins and McConnell or Horford and ET. Yeah, still got to go with Cousins and McConnell there. If Dame can walk, he can play. They're not playing Phoenix. I know... Somebody is posting some old news from a last game. Yeah, we still don't have news on Lillard or Murray. I think Lillard is about a real 50-50 for me right now. I think Jamal Murray is unlikely to play. I'll go 60-40 he sits. Lillard, a very interesting play for FanDuel. Yeah, if he plays. And, I mean, it's a fascinating game theory question, but playing Lillard on FanDuel was... You know, he might not play. You may be taking a 0 on a $10,000 guy, but if he plays and you get him 2% owned, he obviously can put up a monster number against the Hawks. It's really also an anti-Ben Simmons play. Like, you need him to get on top of Ben Simmons and Kyrie. So that's why I'm probably disinclined towards it. If there weren't any other price-up point guard options I really liked, I'd be all over that. But because I really like Simmons, and I certainly don't hate Kyrie, I'm probably disinclined to do it today, but I do like where your head's at. You mentioned Seth Curry over Layman for value last game. Any other value in that game? Value if it's close, value in a Portland blowout. If it's closer, value would be Mo Harkless, who I expect to pick up the start again. Evan Turner, who would have a role at the second unit, and again, you would rather have... and I guess at their prices today, Al-Farouq Aminu at $4,500 is pretty stellar. Seth, not a good play if Dame in. True. The biggest edge of the night is Dame. That's fair. Again, that's can work extremely well or extremely badly. But yeah, gun to my head would say he probably plays. He tends to do that, and that's really as precise as I can get with the current information at hand. Let's look at some of the YouTube chat here. Harkless is 3,800 on DK. Is he lost in the value? No, I like him, and he's a guy who has real steal block upside, and I think he's a brilliant tournament play. I have no issue playing him over Bolden and Muscala, and I think he's absolutely great in tournaments. Anyone know a barber? Is that you taking a shot at me there? Whenever I want a good laugh, I listen to this clown. Thanks. That's nice. I'm glad I can bring a little joy to your life. How do you feel about Furkan Korkmaz on Philly? I think it's a little too cute. I think there is a reason that he fell behind in the rotation, but with all 3 of those guys out, and you're, taking 95 and 100 minutes and distributing to all these other guys, I do think you get Korkmaz getting significant time, but I think it's most likely 17, 18 minutes. I have him in 2 backup spots right now. So I think it's fine in tournaments, but again, I think the likelihood is under 20 minutes. Does anyone trust this guy's projections? I didn't do any projections, so now we're a little confused. Talking about different things. I did some rankings, but I didn't publish any projections today. So ho. Let's see. Any news of note? Any news? So again, especially in the premium select chat, if you have any further questions, by all means, fire at will. I am here for your pleasure. It's not nice to call people a clown. I'm doing the best I can. If you could do better, I strongly encourage you to. It's a very enjoyable line of work. Lillard, a game time decision. Well, how about that information? That changes nothing. Pacers start who we thought they would start. Who would be your top owned guy tonight on DK? Probably Ben Simmons. You know, the play... Yeah, probably Ben Simmons. The play I'm probably most excited about playing would be either Horford or Bolden or Triple J at $4,800. But I mentioned Ben Simmons would be the single greatest integer number. Am I on solo tomorrow as well or another off day? No, I'm on tomorrow all by my lonesome. Pick one of McConnell, Evan Turner, or Justin Holiday, DK, GPP. I'll go with TJ McConnell there. Redick will do all the work tonight. So obvious. I don't hate that take. So obvious, I think, is a bit much. Simply because, as a basketball player, he's very limited in the things he can do. By the way, if you're keeping track for your Holiday versus Curry bet, Drew Holiday now with 29 points. 6 rebounds and 2 assists and a block, but 29 points for Drew. Not Uncle Drew, but Drew with a J. Rudy Gay having himself a nice game. He was probably the guy I liked most in this spot, and unsurprisingly, he's performing. He's putting up a good score for all y'all. Rudy Gay. For some reason he's Irish. Him and Kyle O'Quinn banging out some shillelaghs. Looking for news. Looking for notifications. Trying to help people. Clowning it up. Is Redick a top 5 Duke player currently in the NBA? You know, my college game is pretty weak as far as I would do much worse than I think most people would think I would, if that makes any sense as a sentence, at the what college did this guy come from? Because I just watched so much pro basketball during the winter that I watched proportionally very little college basketball. So a lot of the times, I can't tell you a college, you know, I can tell you every player in the NBA. I can probably sit down and give you the 12 and 15 and 16-man rosters of every team. But I bet you I could get about 10 to 15% of their colleges. I know it's shameful, but not my milieu. So I'm not sure I can name 5 Duke players in the NBA. In all honesty, it's a real weakness in my game. At some point, I will prepare for it like I'm going back on Jeopardy or something. But my knowledge there is certainly specious. There are holes in the bucket, dear Liza. All right, we are coming down to it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a really good week. We had a 200K winner. We had a number of guys in the 5 digits. Adam Scherer had not one but 2 good days. One of my my fellow touts here. So it's been a quality week. I've been excited to be a part of it. Let's keep it going tonight. It's getting a little tougher on the weekends. All those long-lost football players are making their return, their triumphant return to the court. We are coming down to it. I don't have any news in there. I think we've got it. We are locked. So let's do we will do a very quick version of, again, one shitty lock game, which tends to be the case these days. Let's see. I think, is this logged in? All right, let's take a look at some, the Vinsanity shot. Is it like Vince Carter's birthday or something? There's a Vinsanity shot on FanDuel, which is apparently the largest tournament, 333K, $100,000 to first place. Just poking around and looking at some ownership. Javon Carter starting 3% owned. That feels pretty good. Conley, 10%. Tyreek Evans, 20%. See, that's what I'm saying. I'll go elsewhere. There's someone with DeMattis at 10%. Justin Holiday, 19.5. Although, again, shooting guard's a little crappy. I liked Monty and McCollum there. Aaron Holiday, 4%. Miles Turner, 6.5%. I actually like that a lot. Especially on FanDuel. Just carries that whole block upside. Let's go to DK where it's a little easier to suss out these numbers. How many sixes is too many in DK cash? There probably isn't a number. In cash, you worry much less about the redundancy. I doubt there's a reasonable construction you could build that I would say would be necessarily too much. I mean, if you had Simmons, Redick, and 3 value guys, that's probably not ideal, but too much, those guys are all generally worth the money. So probably the 5th one is the point in which I'm like, maybe we're going a little bit out of control here, but I don't know. Let me see if I can find this shindig here. What do we have on DK? I'm trying to find what's the biggest tournament. I guess it's this $375,000 one. Looking at some ownership. Let's see. Well, downloading, but the lineup I clicked on to start with has 16.5% Jaren Jackson Jr., which is pretty exciting. I feel pretty good about that. Lower than we projected and feels pretty good. All right, so here we go. DraftKings largest tournament ownership projection. 22% Darren Collison, 16.5% Jaren Jackson, 15.3% Tyreek. Again, just because of the game, he's, at his price, like I really need him to get like 35 for me to be excited at 5,200. Probably would look elsewhere. Would rather play Thad at 11.3%. Would probably rather play JaMychal Green at 11.1%. Mike Conley, 11% is fine. Justin Holiday, 7.58%. That feels good. Shelvin Mack, 7%. Like that. Marcus All, 6.7%. Like that. Bojan, 6%. 6%, I like it. Miles Turner, 5.3%. Love that. Dematis, 4%. Certainly could happen. Javon Carter, 3.5%. Kojo, 3%. Aaron Holiday, 1.7%. Doug McDermott, 0.1%. Doug McDermott is never the answer. Omri Caspi, 0.1%. Congratulations, you played yourself. Call Diallo and tell him I need his help. What, check Diallo? Is he supposed to be doing something for you? Did you play like the all-day slate and play check, check, check? No, they've pretty clearly given that role to Big Brother there, to Okafor. Although we do have multiple Okafors and Diallos in the NBA. Although I believe Check Diallo and Hamidou Diallo are not actually related. I'm not sure. Strange to have 2 non-related Diallos in the NBA, but I believe that to be the case. So there it is, everybody. I will be back tomorrow, all by my lonesome. I think it's an early slate, so I think I'm on 5 to 6 approximately is the timing there. I'll look. It'll only take us a second, and then I will let you know. And yeah, hopefully we can keep the good times rolling, because it's again been a enjoyable and profitable week for those of us here at theawesemo.com. My schedule right now says 5 to 6. That is sometimes subject to change because the sites can do some wacky things with the slates on Sundays, but I will presume that is the case, and regardless, I will see you all tomorrow afternoon. Until then, tweet me with your love or your hate. I am Fast Eddie Fear. Best of